the problem of education in India is quite straightforward. If you see, we have about 220 to 30 million children in India. And if you talk, and you spoke about the bottom 10 crores, so roughly around 120, 130 million children study of the underserved communities study in government run schools. And the 800 plus local and the state governments, which are supposed to deliver quality education at scale, are not able to do that. And really, it's that straightforward. Like if these are your 120, 130 million children that you need to be supporting, there are multiple gaps in order to do that, right? Because the efficiency of a system to be able to deliver quality at that scale becomes compromised in multiple issues. So let it be in terms of the gap of capacity at different levels inside the machinery, let it be the learning components, like not just like the language and literacy, but I think how do you integrate SCL, how do you integrate technology into learning, pedagogy shifts, the purpose of education, is it has to be rooted in equity, is it excellence, is it 21st century, the will and involvement of different stakeholders, parents, politicians, the policy and planning of how governments are able to do it at multiple levels. So you have multiple gaps. So the only suggestion I have to the youth is just pick your gap, start fighting the battle. There's no one way to say that this is the only thing that's going to get us there. But I think we really care about the bottom 125 million children in the country who need that excellent education. Pick a gap, start. Fighting the good fight. But I think, I mean, all said and done, I think especially the young ones who are trying to get in education sector, there are numerous opportunities, especially in the last 5-10 years, as a plethora of organizations, young organizations like ours, we have just come up. A lot of the times you want to do things with good intention, but I think the one thing that I think for those organizations which are really doing impactful work, for those organizations who are otherwise existing, is only spending time on the ground. There, I really, really believe that in anything you do at any level you want to play, till the time you're not inside classrooms, till the time you're not inside schools, there's really no technocratic solution to solving this problem. So I think that would be one clear message to the problem that is in front of us. I mean, the working with the governments, obviously, I think the last 5 or 10 years, again, the trend that we're seeing, that a lot of governments are open to like young organizations us to like come in, right? Like we are having many multiple private organizations, many NGOs now working very closely with governments at different levels, which is a very positive thing, because I think governments are much more open to taking feedback from different organizations. So that we're seeing as a very positive trend. I think even when working with the government, there are multiple levels, right? Like if the more and more experienced you are, you get to work at with the level of, say, a secretary of a state or a minister's office, who directly sort of oversee the entire education sort of work. But there are multiple opportunities, and this is where I think the youth should start, because a significant chunk of the work doesn't happen at a center or doesn't happen even at a state level. I think it happens at a district and a block level. So I think the closer you are to the schools and teachers and children, the higher impact you're going to make. So even when working with the government, like it doesn't matter, you're working with a set of like 40, 50 schools or 100 schools in a block of 200 schools. I think what matters is like how close you are, how proximate you are to the real change maker. End of the day, the end delivery of education happens through a teacher, which is like the most significant part of an entire education machinery. So how close you are to be able to bring about that change in the teacher, because it really doesn't matter what policy is there. There's not a single policy in India which has ever created change. It's always, any problem has always been a people-led movement. So how do you make it like education also a problem of the people? How do you make them sort of start demanding for quality education, and making sure whatever impact is there, you're closer to the end sort of schools, teachers, and children is what really matters. And government is actually willing to help youth, or even ask youth to work at any level, right from like a top state level, even central level, right? Like we have a lot of consultants and organizations which are working with the central government. But I think the more close, if you really want to, so end of the day, you can work at a policy level, you can do a lot of execution, you can do project management. Multiple opportunities are there for one to work with government. But I think for you to make a meaningful change, the closer you are to the ground, I think is where the meaningful impact you're going to have. There are many positions, like you do have a lot of organizations now setting up the PMUs or a project management units along with the governments, right? I mean, Samagra is a great example. It's one of the partner organizations. I mean, Shiva is from BCG. I think they do also have a team that works closely with state governments. In Maharashtra, like we set up these PMUs with the state government of Maharashtra, and then some other apex academic bodies like SCRT, which is the State Council for Teacher Education, and then district level bodies at a diet level. So a lot of lateral entry work, which sort of helps the research, project management, that sort of work is one kind of work that is available with the government. The second layer of work is slightly more on the execution side, which is what involves a lot of capacity building work. Like, let it be working with multiple officers at a district level or at a state level, working with diets. These are all apex government bodies that work inside the education machinery. But there are also opportunities to build. Then if you come a level below, then huge opportunities working directly in building the capacity of the teachers, because that's a big significant job of if you really want to shift that needle inside a classroom. I think, how do you then work and build the capacity for teachers to be able to do that? So many organizations work with government school teachers to train them and to support them, to coach them. So that's another layered sort of a work that happens inside the government. And at every level, again, it just depends on like what where you want to play. But even at the top level, there are opportunities for people to now sort of write curriculum along, influence the curriculum aspects of how children operate, children sort of study in different states. um, it's quite frankly, it's opened up. Like, if you see the entire government machinery, except like you don't have the authority of being an IS or a class 1 class 2 officer, it's literally, there are wonderful opportunities now for the youth to be able to work in very, very close proximity to the government bodies. So, which I'm seeing is a very positive thing. I think hope it continues. But several organizations are there, and some of the organizations are here represented who are doing some great work.